A very warm welcome to the universe of SAP BTP in a nutshell. Today we have a great session on SAP Market Communication for Utility. So today you will learn how SAP used its own BTP, the services and capabilities to engage with the entire market for energy, of course. Using the industry cloud portfolio and SAP S/4HANA and SAP Cloud Platform for Utilities, we created an end-to-end vertical capabilities to deliver real business value. I would like to present our experts for today. Christoph Müller, Product Manager for Utilities at SAP IPSO, and Kai Merklein, Chief Development Architect at SAP. But before I hand over to our experts, I would like to share upcoming events that might be of interest for you as well. We have online events and we have on-site events as well. So in addition to the series, we also have a series on From No-Code to Pro-Code, the right solution for everyone, and the open space of application operations within SAP BTP. We have a small series also on BTP in HXM, how HR can harness the power of digital technologies and innovation. And we have a short series on how to transform your business for industries with BTP. In addition, I would like to share with you that we have several on-site events. We have 4 in Canada, and we have 1 lined up on April 25th in Dublin. And also I would like to inform you about the SAP BTP Customer Value Network, which provides you with the opportunity to connect with experts, peers, get access to technical content, and SAP experts for their professional and business success to support the sharing of insights and best practices. Also, I would like to share with you that on April 5, we will have another Garage series that might be of interest for you. I will share the link right after the presentation. And also would like to bring to your awareness the various SAP practitioner forums that might be of interest for you. The BTP Garage series, Screen Personas, SAP Fiori Practitioner Forum, BGP for APJ, and the newly developed SAP Build Process Automation Practitioner Forum. And with this, I would like to finally hand over to my colleagues, Christoph.
Thank you, Tanya. Let me just go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Thanks for the nice introduction, Tanya. And we are, of course, excited to be here and talk about SAP Market Communication for Utilities today. My name is introduced as Christoph Müller. I'm a product manager at SAP IBSO, Innovative Business Solution. And together with my colleague Kai Merklein, I'm going to present to you 2 main aspects today. What is SAP Market Communication for Utilities, and how do we leverage BTP and services from BTP for our customers and our solution? Let's jump right to the agenda. First of all, I'm going to give an introduction on SAP Market Communication for Utilities, the benefits, and I'm going to show you an example process as well as the communication we have in between our solution and different other systems. Second, Kai will go ahead and show you how SAP Market Communication for Utilities is leveraging the Business Technology Platform with the main solution building blocks and highlights from the SAP BTP. With that being said, let's jump right into it. What is SAP Market Communication for Utilities and why do we need it? Well, as you might have noticed, the utilities market in general is in quite a rough situation. We have a global energy crisis with exploding prices and procurement issues for energy on a global level. there's a need for sustainable energy sources, transit of energy, and it especially matters when you see the cost of energy. Also, there's radically changing global political situation, and this requires the agility of enterprises. On the other hand, if you see on the top right, we have a high degree of legal changes occurring regularly. And companies are really struggling to deal with all of these legal changes with different regulations in different countries. And in addition to that, there is the need to protect companies and their infrastructure against cyber attacks, but also to be resilient in order to cover changing system requirements regarding pandemics, regarding supply chain disruptions. Customers expect more and more from utilities companies. There's the need to transform your utilities company from a pure energy provider to really a service provider, from just a pure delivery of energy to also offering your customers additional services. And in addition to that, customers want to receive better customer service. They want to reach you on their mobiles, they want applications, they want to be flexible. And to do all that, you need to drive your operational excellence as a utilities company. You need seamless business operations, and you need to use smart technologies. As we have these challenges globally, and we have our SAP solution portfolio to that, on top of that, we thought about a use case for market communication. And what is market communication really? Market communication means the communication of different utilities companies in the market. So why did we build market communication for utilities? In Germany and in many other countries, there are processes which are standardized across many utilities companies, regulated by legal entities or other factors. And we thought to ourselves that we need an efficient solution, and we aligned with the customers to do a specific approach to reach a solution that fits their needs best. We did that through the approach of co-innovation. Commonly with our customers, we defined the industry best practice business processes, both from the legal requirements that we have, but also from the customer requirements and the market expectations. We did a joint prioritization of requirements and enhancements together in a customer community, and we are continuing to do so. And also, we wanted to leverage the core of SAP's strategy, the Business Technology Platform. We use different factors. I've listed 4 here, but Kai will give you a concise approach, a concise introduction about it later on during this section. So really, what is SAP Marco? What is SAP Market Communication for Utilities? Well, here's a nice one-pager which contains a lot of information, but let me explain it to you. SAP Market Communication for Utilities is a public cloud solution where we offer best in industry automated processes to market communication. For now, it is tailored to Germany, but the process framework which we are using is available globally, and we are on the verge of developing further features based upon it. We are also working towards enabling this process framework for partner implementations as well as custom implementations. And our partners are already looking into it and developing first apps on BTP connecting with SAP Market Communication for Utilities. So far, the key of our business is providing market communication in the German markets. And therefore, we reduce the legal change efforts that companies face in the market, and we therefore unlock capacity for the core business and new business models. In addition to that, and I will show you an example in just a minute, we have included additional monitoring and exception handling tools for companies to further optimize their daily business. Marco for Utilities enables our customers to run legally compliant processes, to handle exceptions with low effort, to scale their business, and to connect to SAP S/4HANA utilities solutions for country-specific or for global-specific use cases. If you look on the bottom right side of the slide, you will see a very simplified architecture picture. And I'm sure Kai will get into more details later on. But basically, on the right side, you see SAP Market Communication for Utilities, our public cloud solution. And on the left side, we have shown what we connect in the German market, which is an on-premise solution which you can run in your private cloud or on your premises. So what does Marco consist of? The key building blocks. We have a process framework, we have a message handling framework, and this is all based upon the Business Technology Platform. Let's look at 2 screenshots, and then I will also show you how you can find further information on SAP Market Communication Cloud and a short example from the system itself. On the left side, you see a small screenshot of a process that is just running in Marco Cloud with a sequential approach. And here you can see different steps are part of a process, but it's also more than that. On the right side, we have an example that is there for the meter values for monitoring energy amounts that are being sent out in the market. And all of this paves towards the factors that I've just mentioned, which are the main benefits of SAP Market Communication Cloud. What is the business need behind all of this? Well, especially in Germany, we have a lot of legally specified processes. And here you can see a diagram of one of these processes, which is simply the termination of a supplier assignment. This process is valid for a lot of countries. In Germany, it's highly regulated, of course, but this is the diagram for the process we are productively running at different customers for the termination of a supply assignment. For additional processes, and of course, for general information about our solution, you can visit help.sap.com/Marco. And there we also provide a list of frequently asked questions. And now I want to both show you some frequently asked questions as well as a concrete example in the system. And therefore, we'll just quickly swap over to my browser. Okay, let's first talk about some frequently asked questions. And here you can see there's an overview of many of these questions available at the link that I just informed you about. And this consists of a lot of the questions you will ask yourself now. What is the technical infrastructure? Can I extend apps? How does SAP operate? And many more. I don't want to dig into detail. I just wanted to introduce it to you. And there's also the possibility to search through here. And if there's anything missing from your side, please don't hesitate to contact us with the contact data we will provide later on. Looking into the system, I just said SAP Market Communication for Utilities offers a lot of benefits. But how does it really look like? Well, there are many processes, of course, that we offer on market communication for utilities. And one very easy example is receiving a meter reading. This is a process that is valid for, of course, many, many countries. And in Germany, there are 3 main market roles. There's a meter operator, there's a distributor, and a supplier. If now there's the need for a meter reading to arrive at the distributor, the meter operator sends it to the distributor. And this process document that I'm showing to you right now is showing exactly this use case. Let's look at the activities. I just told you we have a very nice monitoring of processes. Here you can see the activities of a process. How did this process start? Well, there were meter readings coming from the MOS to the DSO. What happened next? We checked in the supply scenario if at this location, the DSO is assigned, if it's a correct meter reading at the location and the DSO is also assigned to that location. Next, we requested the connected business system to update the meter values. And finally, we updated a reference table in case there's reversals later on, and we completed the market process. We have also a detailed step overview for technical users, which want to look into more detail, but one more aspect is really important. Namely, how do we communicate? How do we establish a communication between our market communication running on top of BTP and other solutions? First of all, the detailed step view. As you can see here, in case there's the need for technical users to dig into more details, and we also have a step view for technical users where you can extend different information, you can look into details. But as I said, the main use case of our solution is the communication between external market partners, but also between Market Communication Cloud and an associated S/4HANA utility system. How does this communication look like? In addition to the processes we have communication documents. We call them transfer documents. There's a lot of technical information here. We have different monitoring for different users. The business user, of course, has a simplified monitoring for this. But right now, I'm showing to you the technical monitoring. And on the bottom left side, you see here how a regulated message for a meter reading in the German market looks like, and this is being used productively by our customers to then send it out. It contains a lot of information. For example, what is the meter device number? And if I click on full payload, you see the full message here. What is the quantity that had been consumed on the high tariff? What is the quantity that had been consumed on the low tariff? So all of this is inside, and this is highly regulated. And our use case is to provide this on top of the process framework for a regulated market like Germany, where everyone has to use the same approach towards communicating with each other. But in addition to that, how do we establish the communication between Marco Cloud and the S/4HANA utilities system? Well, if I go back into that detailed step view, then you will see that we have also linked for each step where there is communication between Market Communication Cloud and any external system or market partner, we have linked a communication reference exactly being one of these transfer documents. So let's look at this. How is this looking towards? If we send a meter reading update request to the business system, then the business system, they just need to know what they have to do. So what data is inside this transfer document? Let me open it up for you. And I think this table view that we have, or this tree view here, is very important to understand what is happening in the background of the normal process operations. So I just told you we received a meter reading value in that process. And therefore you can see we have different data objects. We receive a meter reading value, and inside it, there's a request with a POD ID, with a date from, date to, this was just for 1 day, and there's a message reference number. And there's so much more inside. So based upon Business Technology Platform, we build a process framework, but we also build a possibility to standardize communication between different systems at SAP. And for that reason, I think it's really interesting also to look what technology are we using in the backside of this implementation and how are we leveraging SAP BTP. I will now hand over to my colleague Kai, Chief Architect at SAP IBSO for Market Communication Cloud for Utilities. Kai, let me ask you to share your screen and provide some additional details, please.
Yes, thank you, Christoph, also for introducing myself. As you mentioned, I'm one of the architects at the Marco Cloud solution, and I'm sharing now, hopefully. And I'd like to give you a bit more of insight about what capabilities of BTP we have chosen to use to build this solution. Before we go into that detail, I would like to quickly recap what already, Christoph, you have shown in the system very nicely, and have it a bit more in a schematic view to, again, look what a market process is, because this effectively also defines non-functional requirements and drives the considerations to choose the right components to support a solution. So if you look at this picture here on the left-hand side, you can see the business backend system. As mentioned by Christoph, this would be an S/4HANA system with the utilities functionality implemented. This is the system where all the master data of a customer, of our customers, of the utilities company as such resides. So here they have the data about their customers, which are the electricity or energy consumers. Here they have the data about the meter devices installed at these locations. From there they can control the maintenance of these devices. And from there they can, of course, do the billing and the invoicing. So this is where all the core utilities business runs. Looking at the middle, and this is now actually the part we are talking today, this is the Market Communications Cloud solution, which is running on SAP BTP. So here we are executing the process where Christoph has just shown you this nice example of one. And on the right-hand side, we have the external market partner. So this is actually the other utility companies to which or with whom we exchange data, where we send these messages. So also here we had already a nice example of this market message just seen before. So what I would like to highlight here using also this picture is actually to say what we are doing in this market communication process is mainly running on the BTP side, so on our cloud solution side right here in the middle. Nevertheless, there is this part of the process which is executed on the business backend side, and those two, let's say, process twins are tightly linked together. And they communicate via these messages where we have just seen one in the preview. So this is the business data message. And I think you also noticed that this message can be pretty complex. So the example we have just seen was a rather small one. It basically contained more or less a meter reading. We have more complicated examples for other processes, which gives you just a feeling of what kind of data we send. So this is really quite quite an amount of business relevant data, which is going back and forth, and which of course needs to be processed then in our cloud solution. And this is not primarily a technical issue, but this is of course this is the nature of the solution to be able to handle it and to understand this business data. And to have a process around it to capture multiple variations and multiple possibilities, how the process can evolve over time. What we can also see on this picture, and what I try to indicate with all these arrows back and forth, is in this example of having one process, it's just some example of an abstract process, we have a multitude of messages going back and forth. And this is also important from understanding which part of BTP solutions we build and which architecture we have chosen. So important to take away here is we have a multitude of messages going back and forth between the business backend system and the market communication cloud system, and also a multitude of messages between the market partner and our cloud solution. And all of these messages comprise now just one instance of a process. And I think this is one of the important messages here. Another thing which is indicated is maybe the view from a user's perspective. So these are these white boxes on the upper part in the business backend system. With regards to our processes, there is mainly monitoring happening and also some exception processing. So there will be occasions when a manual decision has to be taken by someone because despite all efforts of automating the implementation in the backend system, there might be questions which only a human can decide. This should, of course, be exceptions. And that's why it's called exception processing. But this is an interaction point of users with the solution, with, again, the big idea behind that we can automate 99.9% and more of everything. On the cloud side, we also have some user access to the solution, which mainly is about monitoring of business processes. And again, here the idea is only to monitor exceptions. So also here the user should only be in touch with alerting situations with some exceptions going wrong, maybe wrong certificates, potentially wrong data sent by an external market partner. And for this, we have quite some UIs, and I think also the UIs Christoph showed before are the ones which can then be used to track down such issues. And you have a couple of self-services where our subscribers of our SaaS solution can maintain some of their data which is required to execute the process. Maybe another thing important to mention is this cloud solution, as also Christoph said, is covering the legally regulated part of these market processes. So, and the specific implication is this legally regulated part is the same for all market partners. And therefore, we do not have any customer-specific logic in our cloud solution. There might be some custom-specific implementation in the business backend, which is anyways under responsibility of our subscribers. But in our pure cloud solution, we have the luxury to treat all processes the same, because from a legal perspective, they must be the same. Having said this, I would move on. So I have here collected just again the major takeaways. So a market process is comprised of several market messages, several interactions, and they are fully standardized. Another aspect, if we look into the technology set we have chosen, is the volume. Looking at the combination of complexity of the processes and the sheer mass of the processes, it is definitely a high volume of expectedly many 100 millions per year, which need to be processed. And then, of course, depending on the share which we get with our solution, there are still a couple of 100 millions for us to process. So we definitely have to consider this volume. And this volume is quite a lot, again, if we consider the complexity. We are not just sending some sensor data like other IoT scenarios, which potentially do have a much higher volume, but we are really handling here processes which have a lifespan of hours to days and and have very different variations of how they can be executed depending on the process progress. We have also peak situations. So a nice example is the one which Christoph has shown with sending the meter data. These have to be sent daily, and there's just a relatively short time span in which the utilities companies have to collect data about energy consumption of the last day, the day before, and then they have to collect it, they have to compress it, they have to check and validate it, they have to hand it over to us, and we have to send it out to the market partners. And it's a relatively short time every day of a couple of hours, while the energy values to be sent are quite a lot. And this definitely gives us a peak every day. And then, of course, there are also seasonal peaks, like when meter readings, the yearly meter readings are happening by the electricity end consumers, situations like this. Another important aspect is why we have chosen to develop a process engine, as you will see later, is that we need to be capable to handle deadlines and wait times. So this actually means if a process starts, automatically a set of deadlines is instantiated. So, for example, there's a deadline until when a market partner has to respond to a message we have sent him. There can be a negative or positive response. There must be a formal response, whether the syntactical message was correct, so that is just from formal perspective, okay. And it must arrive within 60 minutes. An application level error in our message can arrive up to 4 hours later. And then if we have a more complex process, like a switch of a supplier, there are much more deadlines in the process, which are then also depending on each other. So whether the one company, whether one supplier accepts the termination will drive another deadline for the next steps in the process. So we need to be able to handle this and also have the lifespan of data which covers this, and efficient access to running process instances to be able to handle the time-critical responses correctly. All right, and on top of this comes the difference of message kinds or types. So we do have processes which are comprised by many small messages, whereas we also do have processes which do have very large messages, lower number of messages than typically, but this can, for example, be invoice lists, when a list has millions of entries because it's a list containing the grid consumption fee for all consumers in a certain area. Then in that case, there are millions of line items in a message. It will be technically split into multiple messages, but still even the split part are relatively large. They can be 10, 50, up to 100 megabytes of a pure text format. You have seen it's EDIFACT, and this contains quite a lot of data. And still we have to efficiently process it through the system, which gives us another, let's say, non-functional requirement, or another, at least challenge to be able not just to process many messages, but also to process large messages. And from a technical perspective, this can be quite different. All right. I would move on now, coming a bit closer to the architecture. I keep it very much high level. The solution has been developed over a couple of years, and it is inside much more complex than we are able to show today in this short webinar. That's why I keep it very much high level. So again, from just the very major building blocks, we have, again, the business system on the left-hand side. So I think I talked enough about it. This is not the cloud solution. This comes now on the right side, and this is where we want to talk about the BTP adoption. We have the market partners as well. I think we are clear about them. They are external. And now we have, as one of the big building blocks of our solution, the market message transfer. This is our internal name of this component. And this is quite a collection of technologies and functionalities which are combined here. I come to this in more detail just on the next slide I had prepared. Just now for here, the major objective of this component is to handle the individual messages. Now, mainly the ones exchanged with market partners. So there's more to handle for this component, but also purely technically, we are using the same component of our solution also as a relay and as a sort of adding resilience to our solution when we are communicating to the business backend. So this component is available for all kind of this message transfer. And then, as already Christoph has shown, these messages, these transfer documents are an asynchronous messaging. So this component is handling it, is storing it in a queue once they arrive, and making sure they are kept safely, even if other components like the business backend system or the process engine would temporarily not be available. So we have here a safe space where the asynchronous messages are stored and auto-processed. Final missing part is the process engine. So this is the engine which now does not care about individual messages. It, of course, consumes the individual messages, but the purpose of this solution is actually then to assign these individual messages into a process and thereby control the process and ensure that the process runs as it should, that it has all the information it needs. Well, the process engine is about the orchestration of the process as such, consuming incoming messages while also sending outgoing messages, preparing them in terms of the business content which need to be put into these messages. So these are the the very high-level building blocks. And with this, I would like to give a bit more detail for each, and then also come to the technologies we are using inside of these boxes. So we start with the orange one, the market message transfer. So what does it do? Already roughly highlighted individual messages. These are EDIFACT messages. You have seen this before. EDIFACT is not very human readable. And definitely we need a component here which is able to render such an EDIFACT message. This is from a technical perspective rather simple. Parsing it is a bit more complex, as it's also not easily readable for humans. Also systems need to be able to do this. And here luckily we have a BTP component which is equipped to help us here. This component, market message transfer, so our solution component, is also responsible for encryption and decryption. So all these messages which are going to the market partners have to be sent encrypted. They need to be decrypted when they arrive. There's also a digital signature on them, which needs to be verified. These underlying regulations from a legal perspective are also changing from time to time. So they are introducing newer and better signing and encryption algorithms to be used. This happens similar like the regulation of the process itself is changed by law. Also some regulations which find their way from the BSI into the BNetzA have to be considered here in terms of encryption and technical transfer. So that's another thing which our component needs to handle. We also need to do the technical routing of the solution, so sending it to the real endpoint at the other utilities company, at our market partner. And here we have to support different technologies. Historically, it is still common practice in the German energy market to send these data via email, encrypted and digitally signed, but technically as an email. This is going to change soon, so there will be an HTTP-based communication legally prescribed in future. AS4 will then be the solution we have to support and to handle. Currently, we are polling mails from mailboxes, and from mail service where the mails arrive, and we also have to send them. I just mentioned before, format parsing and rendering must be possible, so the EDIFACTs need to be parsed and rendered, yes. And also we are doing syntax checks on these EDIFACTs. So there is a message implementation guide, for example, which defines clearly how the EDIFACT has to be constructed so that it's correct, which data types can be used and have to be used, and so on. So we are checking this, and we are checking this outbound and inbound. Inbound, we have to check what we receive from our market partners, and we have to respond back to the market partner if it's not correct. Outbound, we of course want to safeguard that we are sending correct EDIFACTs. So we do another round of safeguarding of whatever we have rendered before, just to ensure that it complies with the actual valid MIG, because again, this also changes over time. So all the stuff needs to be version dependent very much as well. And sometimes we have to support also different versions at the same point in time, which gives us another challenge, but nevertheless, that's a functional one. So who does help us in BTP with all these challenges I mentioned? So this is, in this case, front and foremost, the SAP Cloud integration. Maybe if you are rather familiar with on-premise, this is comparable to what we know as the SAP PI in an on-premise landscape. And this is basically a feature set which is also provided in the BTP component for cloud integration. which helps us a lot with the challenges just mentioned before. So this component helps us with the edifact format. It helps us with all the encryption and decryption algorithms, with the technical routing, with the email handling. This is all part here we can leverage. We can have logic inside with the so-called integration flows, what we are also using to support these functions I just mentioned and to connect them and to integrate them. And this solution has a queuing inside, which helps us, like I mentioned before, to get a certain resilience and to be resilient against the fact when, if, for example, our process engine wouldn't be available, still market partners or the business backend systems would send us messages, then they would be stored in the message queues of the cloud integration system and would there be available when our process engine in this example would be back online, then we can continue the processing. Other components we are using here is SAP HANA Cloud. We have to store some message reference tables and some data resulting from the customer self-services, like specific communication parameters to be used and similar information. We are using here also Cloud Foundry in the SAP BTP for quite some of these self-services I just mentioned, but also for some monitoring aspects as well, customer-facing as internal-facing to our DevOps. We developed quite a couple of monitoring applications, alerting applications, integrations to other systems we are using for handling and detecting issues and solving issues if they arise. Other component used is the audit logging, which is helper functionality, quite useful for all kinds of configuration changes and other relevant changes being made by people so that they are safely and in an audit safe way logged in that BTP service we are using here. Continuing with the process engine, so already mentioned, it orchestrates the business processes. So here is more complex logic inside as compared to the market message transfer. Here we have all the business logic of a process, and these processes, if it's complicated ones, can have really many steps and they can have sub-processes. Famous example here, if you switch your supplier, so as an electricity consumer, you decide you found a cheaper supplier, then it is not just only that the master data of the old and the new supplier have to be changed and synchronized with the network operator, the DSO. It also needs to be, there also needs to be a communication about the meter readings, which are current at the point in time. Potentially even the meter device needs to be changed depending on the situation, which would be another sub-process to be triggered in such a scenario. So we can have processes which are itself complicated. There can be a need to trigger sub-processes. And this needs to be tied together and needs to be tied together and integrated well together. This is all part of the business logic we have to support and which our component here needs to handle. Also, what we do here is data retrieval from the business backend. So in the cloud solution, we don't have persisting data. All the master data is residing on the customer's business system. We are basically just keeping in our cloud solution all the process relevant data containers for this process. They can be huge, but nevertheless, they have a limited lifetime which corresponds to the lifetime of the process. And whatever we need as business data, we retrieve from the backend system. This is where the single source of truth for the data lies. And same way, after the process is completed, also on the business backend system, data needs to be updated. And this, of course, needs to be kept in sync regarding the status and being sure that all these updates have happened correctly. Yeah, we do business data mapping, business data validation, and this already mentioned deadline processing. Don't want to go into much more detail than already done. These are all the functions we need to support here. Now let's more look in the question, how do we do it? So currently we are in development of a solution with the right set of cloud qualities for handling such processes, for handling peak times and the scalability needs. This is based on the Kuma runtime, which has basically a Kubernetes cluster inside. We are leveraging here the HANA Cloud because we need to keep data and need to be able to query it. So when a process sleeps for some minutes or hours, and while it waits for a message from outside, for a response from outside, we have to keep the data, and when then this response message arrives, then of course we have to query the data from a database and load our data container back and need to process it. So this is why we need HANA Cloud as a safe storage for data, which is stored during the lifetime of a process. We are using SAP message queuing. This is a service in that form just available internally to SAP, but it is very similar to the SAP BTP event mesh. It's technically more or less the same. It's just a slimmer variant we are using here. It does exactly the same, and what the name implies, it is used for passing messages between instances of our microservices. So the schema-based solution is a microservice architecture which is message-based, and for doing this message communication, we are using this message queuing. As said, in the outside world, this would be the event mesh. We are using the cloud logging service as we are a microservice component. It's built on Node.js as a backend and executed on Kubernetes, as mentioned. So we are logging the respective log outputs and need to have them available in order to find potential issues or detect other problems. And this is where we use the SAP Cloud Logging Service, which is a central service collecting logs from a variety of platforms and then providing it as a searchable index, and with dashboards we can tailor to our needs, and then in our DevOps groups and people can easily access all the logs created by our runtime. What else we have here is the SAP BTP ABAP environment. So if you remember the picture about the process, so we had this process twins. Actually, one part of the process is executed in the backend system, the other part is in a cloud system. And both are, in that terms, processes that they keep together a sequence of messages and orchestrate them. Now, what we have as a solution to depict this process in the business backend system is an ABAP-based solution, clearly because the business backend is S/4HANA Cloud. And we could gain quite some time to market, also save some already done investments and leveraging people's skills by taking over some of the code line we are using in the business backend system as a basic process engine for our cloud system. And this is why we are executing, as of now, still a couple or quite many processes, to be frank, in the ABAP environment, with the vision and roadmap to switch to the Kuma-based solution for all processes which demand really high scalability or have huge messages to handle. We are clearly targeting to go to the Kubernetes-based solution, which gives us exactly those cloud qualities we need for this scalability demand, and this as an efficient way of doing things. Monitoring and customer self-services we also mentioned. So this is mainly sitting on top of the how comes later. So it's for the customer to monitor on the cloud side the processes, and this is on business process level and targeted at exceptions only. So here again, what do we mean by process level? It is not about monitoring individual messages. It's about putting all the messages into their process context and having a clear and understandable way to understand how the process was executed, but then also to see which messages had been involved and exchanged, because this might be the reason for an error or for something which needs to be aligned between the utilities companies. And in that exceptional situation that a message cannot be automated processed, we deliver this monitoring, which allows to really drill down the process into all the individual messages and to clearly understand the data, to understand the technical acknowledgement messages going back and forth in that communication, so that from a business perspective, you can drill down to the finest technical perspective of the message itself. Then we have the self-services. So I think I briefly mentioned already, these are things like routing parameters, target addresses, target endpoints. We have to store these certificates and other security material for doing the encryption and decryption, which should of course not be touched and visible to us. It should be safely uploaded by the customer himself in a self-service. And we have various other self-services. So there's a small set of master data which needs to be passed around and which does not exist on the business system as such, but still needs to be sent out or enriched into messages. This can then be maintained in these UI components we are delivering. And how are we doing this? So we are using mainly Cloud Foundry as the runtime for these self-service and UI-driven apps. And they are built in Java, Node.js, depending on when we started them. And basically it's more or less depending when the development was started. As mentioned, we are working already some years on this technology. We are consistently using CAP, the Cloud Application Programming Model, in our solution to have all the data access, all the data modeling, and all the UI data provisioning. Using HANA Cloud again as a persistent storage, using message queuing also in this place to pass status updates from the process engine, from the market message transfer into a central monitoring solution. All things like that to integrate the individual components. We are using message queuing. Again, this is also available outside of SAP as an event mesh, as called event mesh. And we have the SAP Business Rules service, as we have a routing component which can route individual messages based on business rules, which are looking in the content of the message itself, partially deeply inside. And these rules are maintained by our customers as per their needs and are deviating some messages to other endpoints than they would usually go to. Okay, I have a quick recap about the highlights of the BTP services we are using. I think I mentioned quite a couple of aspects already before, so it's really more of a recap. And it's just 3 highlights. So one of the services we are using is the SAP HANA Cloud. As mentioned, it gives us a reliable storage of our transactional data. We can even store a lot of data inside. And if we look at the situation that in our data containers, we also need to persist the full messages with the full payload. This can grow big. And still we need to have it transactionally safe and reliable stored. And here HANA Cloud is our solution to go to. It's fast and scalable as a cloud solution. And it's very, very well and seamlessly integrated with all the other technologies we are using. So regardless whether Node.js, Java, CAP, cloud integration. So whatever we are using, it is very well supported and connected in the BTP to use HANA Cloud, and makes it for us the persistent solution of choice. The Kyma runtime is the visionary and strategic runtime of our process engine, as already mentioned. So what's inside and why have we chosen it? So I guess there's more inside. I'm pretty sure there's more inside, but our reasons for choosing it and what we are mainly using is, it's first of all a fully managed Kubernetes cluster. So we don't have to set it up in our Market Cloud solution. It is already provided. It's fully managed. There's a support level behind. Kubernetes is a state-of-the-art cloud runtime. It gives us perfect scalability. We can deploy all our workloads we need. We have a very good integration with logging services and other BTP services we need. It scales very elastically. It can scale down to almost 0, while it can very quickly scale up in a peak situation. And what Kyma gives us on top of these Kubernetes qualities I mentioned now, there's a predefined set of open source tools installed. For example, the Istio service mesh is already available just out of the box. We don't have any hassle around it. It's given there for us, and that's already a beauty. There are other services inside, like an eventing solution, which is NUTS-based, and a serverless runtime, which we also frequently use for quickly prototyping during the development phase, some functionalities. So this is a really nice and convenient service we really enjoy to use. And we can also easily integrate with the SAP BTP services, because the respective SAP BTP operator is also pre-installed already on a Kyma runtime.
Hi.
Yes.
Just a quick look at the time check. We have 3 minutes left.
Yes. I think I'm almost through.
Okay, great.
Okay, so Cloud Foundry, I think most of it is already mentioned, and to keep it short, it is our runtime for the Node.js and Java applications. It's the most proven SAP BTP runtime, and we started already some years ago when it was basically more or less the only one really well supported on cloud. We are still very happy with it today, and for all our typical UI use cases, self-service use cases, it is definitely the way to go, because it's proven and the documentation is very, very good, and we have although a lot of developers are very familiar with it, and it's very easy to adopt as a BTP runtime. Services are perfectly and seamlessly integrated for service peering. So I think it's the best support for other BTP services to be reused. Okay, some further BTP services we are using, just to give a bit more complete picture. There are much more BTP services around in BTP, which I have not mentioned explicitly, but which are still part of our solution and do their job very well. We store the HTML front ends in the application repository, audit logging service, we mentioned the credential store for a safe storage of data and then security material from our customers. We are a multi-tenancy software as a service application. So we use the service manager to provision our services and to keep the data, authorization and trust management for security. And yeah, a lot of other services maybe I even forgot to mention here, but luckily, as we are out of time, I have not put all, but certainly the most, which give us very much value and which allowed us to build this solution and now to run it also very successfully in production since some years. All right, with that, my part is done.
Perfect. Right on top of the hour almost.
Oh.
We don't have any questions in the chat, and I would say, should any questions come up, I have posted all of our email addresses in the chat, so please feel free to contact us anytime. And with this, I would like to express a big thanks to Christoph and Kai for your excellent presentation. It was very interesting to see how you set up this project. And of course, a heartfelt thank you to all our attendees for joining. And I hope to see you again in our next webcast. Have a great day. Bye-bye, everyone.